Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Amazing podcast. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Amazing. And if you like what you hear on this episode, go to amazing.com and check out everything else that we have for you there. We've got articles, job listings, event coverage, and a whole lot more. So that's definitely the place you want to be if you're interested in anything cloud, Kubernetes, or containers. So today we're going to be continuing our series of podcasts, talking to a startup in the authorization space, and we've covered, I think, one or two startups previously in this space. So we're going to continue that streak of talking about authorization here. We're going to be talking to Permit today. That's a startup. Their website is permit.io, permit.io. And I have with me today Oded Ben David. He is the first developer at permit.io and handles all of their development and engineering operations. So Oded, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm doing just great.
All right. So, Oded, if you can get us started with introducing yourself and telling us about your background before Permit, that would be a great start.
Okay, so I'm a software engineer, a developer, and I love to develop. Since I'm 13, I started playing a bit with software, building up my first websites. I also created some indie games with my friends, and later on we would play those games. So it was really nice as well. It was a Dave-style games, really simple, but we had a great time. After that, I wanted to understand better how things works and get a bit to the internal parts of the software. So I learned a bit of security and how the website operate and how smartphones operate, and got into the security aspect of things. And after that, in the age of 20, I've joined the army to 8200, which is the intelligence unit of the Israeli army. I served there for 5 years. It was really a good experience. I learned a lot. I served with great tech people. And after 5 years there, I joined to a small company named Clarity as a core team member there. Clarity is doing security for OT networks, which is something that not a lot of people knows about. We all know about IT networks. We all use it in our day-to-day, and there are a lot of companies that are doing security for that, like McAfee and Norton and so on, and also large companies as Cisco and the Checkpoint that are doing the security for the network itself. In Clarity, we secured the OT network, which is operational technology. It's all the networks that being used inside manufacturers, like car manufacturers or big food suppliers. And this was an area that no one protected. And at Clarity, we started building some security solutions for them. And gladly, Clarity is now a really big company. It's a double unicorn, I think, with more than 500 employees, with bases all over the world. I joined as a single developer. I started a team there, and we were in charge of the whole application. And during my 5 years at Clarity, we ended up building the permission solution, the authorization, multiple times. and it was a really hard task. And every time I give it to one of the developers or did it myself, I saw how difficult it is. So when Asaf and Or, the founders of Pyramid.io, asked me to join to their new startup, and they wanted to build a SaaS product that will help the developer with the authorization. And so no developer will need to build his own authorization system ever again. I was very excited about it and joined as their first developer.
Wow, that's quite a story. And looks like a lot of experience in security itself. So yeah, that's great. Great to have you with us today. As we start talking about authorization, I wanted to first get the definitions out of the way. But, it'd be great if you can define for us what is authorization and why is it so important? Why should someone care about authorization? And there are other similar, related terms like permissions and access management. So if you kind of define the key terms that we're going to be using today, that'll be a good next step.
Great. So it's really important because a lot of people confuse with authentication and authorization. So let's take it with analogy. Let's say I have an hotel, and there comes a person and want to get in. So he comes to the reception and he introduces himself. He says, "My name is Oded. Here is my ID or passport." After that, he will get the key to his room. But if he will want to get a key to another room, he won't be able to. But if you're the manager of the hotel or the owner, you will be able to get all the keys to all the rooms because you own the hotel. So authentication is about who you are, the step that you show your ID or passport. The authorization part is the part that tells you what you can do. You get the key to your room or all the rooms according to who you are. So now that we know what authentication and authorization is, why is it so important to do authorization right? So when you do authorization, you actually letting your user to act on your product, and you must do it in a secure way so everyone can do what he is allowed to do, but not what he cannot do, because it's can cause great security issues when somebody can reach all the other customers' data, for example. It is really problematic from the security perspective. And the challenges are more difficult now than ever, because now with the movement to the cloud, everyone can reach your application. So you need to make sure who the user is and that he is allowed to do what he tries to do, because otherwise it can be a hacker or something like that, and you definitely don't want them to be able to access your private data. OWASP, the security organization, stated that one of the most issues in today's application security is the misconfiguration of the authorization. Because this is such a hard problem, we will talk about it further today, but it's really hard to get it right. And because most of the developers are not always a security experts. So somebody gets the task, build an authorization solution. It's usually not their main expertise. So they, let's say, I don't know, a full stack engineers. They know how to do things that will be performant, for example, and will look very nice, but they don't know how to build authentication and authorization in a way that will be both secure and easy to expand. Because another issue that you have with authorization, and not a lot of people think about it, is that the policy should grow with your application. If you're starting with a small side project and you're having a lot of users suddenly, and they're asking, give us more roles. So you're walking to each and every action and add another role. You're likely to miss something. So building it right and in a way that will be sustainable, it's really hard. Nobody is expert on that. This is one of the reasons that it's so important to, it's so difficult and important to do authorization right.
Yeah, that's a great response. I think you've gotten to a lot of detail. And I wanted to talk a bit about open source, because, over the past few years, I think, that's one of the key developments in this space. There have been some really key open source projects that have been introduced, and Permit itself really embraces open source. It's in fact built on a couple of these open source tools. So if you could comment a bit on what's been happening in authorization and how open source tools have become more important, and which are these tools and what do each of them do? Yeah, that would be really interesting to hear.
Cool. So there are two open source projects that I will speak of, and another white paper that was released lately. So let's start with OPA. OPA is a great open source for policy evaluation. It's being used in very large tech companies such as Netflix and Pinterest and much more. It's also CNCF graduated project. So it's very trustworthy. And what it can do, it's you give it a policy and it evaluates the policy really fast and accurate, of course. So this is main advantage, and it's give you also a really good best practice, because we talked about how difficult it is to manage your policy and permissions while it's integrated with your code. And if you want to add a role, for example, you need to go to each and every place, each and every route and action, and add this role to each of them. But if you are using OPA or similar tool, you need to take all the policy related logic and move it to a microservice. This will help you a lot, because if you want to now add a new role, for example, you will add it in that microservice. Each and every action will query this microservice, and now you can manage it in one place, and it's much, much easier. You still have a lot of difficulties because you need to sync the relevant policy data to this microservice all the time. Think about it. If, for example, you want to let specific features to be open only to paying customers, so you need to keep in mind and update always the list of paying customers. So you need to keep this OPA instance synced with all the policy related data all the time. And you have another issue that you need to, it's hard to track what is the current policy status in your OPA instance. Let's say you have multiple OPA instances, you need to sync both the data and the policy all by your own. It's a bit difficult. And you can see that companies like Netflix published articles and lectures about how they did it right, because it's not easy at all. So for that, to make it a bit easier, you have OPAL. OPAL is indeed using OPA to manage the policy, but it helps you with syncing the policy into all your OPA or OPAL clients. OPAL stands for Open Policy Application Layer. Open Administration Policy Administration Layer, sorry about that. And it syncs all the policy to all the clients and also all the data. If you have relevant data to the policy, for example, the list of paying customers, it will be synced automatically using OPAL to all your clients. More than that, you will also enjoy the advantage of GitOps. GitOps, as you probably know, is the ability to take all the good best practices that we know from deployment of code, take it to other places as well, and using Git for that. So for example, OPAL can track a Git repository, and then you commit the policy to this Git repository, and it change. OPAL server will stream that change to all the clients. It can also perform tests on that. And if it will also get you audit who changes what, because it's Git. And you also can roll back if someone did something that harm your policy. You can roll back to previous version, just like we do in code. No need to invent the wheel. Just use the best practices that we all know. So OPAL is an open source project, as you said, operated by Permit. You are more than welcome joining to the Slack community, asking questions, and see if OPAL is a good fit for you.
Okay.
Last,
right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, last thing that it will be nice to mention is Zanzibar, which is a white paper that Google published about how they, inside Google, doing permission to very large products like Google Drive and YouTube.
Yeah.
So this is more of a graph-based permission, ReBAC, relationship-based access control. And this is a great way to do permissions as well. You have some open source tools for that. And also in Permit, we now support a basic form of ReBAC. So it's also a great way to manage your permissions.
Okay, that's great. So a lot of developments in the open source space, and you covered some of those key projects. And so OPAL, is Permit the creator of OPAL, or is just one of the companies involved in the project?
Yes, we are the creator of OPALs. There are a lot of other organizations using it, like Tesla and Accenture, using and a bit contributing to it as well. But Permit is currently the main contributor and creator. We highly encourage people that into open source come and join and contribute. We'll help you with that, and you will help all the community.
So it's not yet part of the CNCF, right, OPAL?
No, it's in the way, but not there yet.
Okay, yeah, neat. Yeah, and you kind of teased us into the concept of ReBAC, which also we're going to be talking about more. But that'll be a good spot for us to shift gears to talking about Permit. And if you could tell us what is Permit, what does it do, what are the key benefits that it offers that you kind of hinted at in your previous responses. If you can tell us now explicitly about Permit and what it does.
Gladly. So Permit is the SaaS offering of Permit.io, the company that I work for. It allows you to manage all the policy and permissions and authorization and much more in a SaaS product. So it's built on top of OPAL that we just mentioned. And a part of giving you the best practices of separating policy from code and separating the data from code, the data integration, and the GitOps, of course, it gives you a few other advantages. One of them is the back office for stakeholders. So permits believe that authorization is an organization effort. Not only the developers can be the only one that knows what happens in the policy. This is two important part of any product. So with the UI that you have in permit, everyone in the company can check out and understand it with a glance the state of your policy. So even the security team can log in and see the policy status. And also you have inside permit two types of audit logs. The first one will be simple audit log, who did what and when he did that. And the other one is even more important, why was he allowed to do that? Because if, for example, an editor deletes a file, you need to understand how can it be. Maybe it's because he is the owner of this file, so he allows to do it. Or maybe somebody give the editor role permission to delete files. So you need the basic level of audit logs and meta audit logs that tells you differences in the policy itself. So this is another important thing that I'm sure that security people will be really interested in that. Apart from that, also the product team can come and add roles if they need without even needing a developer to do each and every step. We have one company that uses permit that when they need another role, for example, they had audit on external audit, so they just created an audit role for their auditor and delete it after that. It's so easy to do it when you have such a mechanism. So apart from the back office for the stakeholders, you have also interfaces that we call permit elements that you can embed in your own application. So not only your internal team can use UI interfaces to manage the policy, also your own clients will be able to invite users, change roles, of course, only what you allow them to do. But it's also a great thing that helps not only your own organization, also your customers. So just to sum it up, you have the differentiate policy from code and data from code. You have GitOps, you have stakeholders, back office for the stakeholders, and the permit elements that you can embed in your own application.
Yeah, I think that decoupling is definitely something important that's happening across the stack. We're just moving more towards very decoupled and distributed application and infrastructures. And I think that's a good thing because there's more control for each different person who owns different priorities. Definitely makes things better when you decouple.
Right.
And, so you've given us a good overview of the space authorization, and you told us specifically the key features of permit. But if you could show us a little walkthrough what permit looks like, what's it like to work, to use permit for authorization. That I'll be really curious to see that.
Okay, gladly. So I will share my screen. Great. So this is the permit dashboard. You can see a few details on your environment. Permits work within organization and then project. And inside the project, you have environments like production and development and so on. So here is the dashboard. You can see here all the projects that I use and the status, if it's connected to working application or not. And here is the main screen, the policy editor, which you can see each role and the resources and actions that available in each role. You can, now you see it from the role perspective. You can also see it from the resources and action perspective. We have also the ABAC rules that I will mention shortly just to explain better this demo in a minute. You have user management screen and elements that you can embed. Also, you have audit log that explain each and every action that was in the application. Then we will deep dive to it shortly in a minute. And you can you have here the explanation how to connect permit into your app. So to show a quick demo, I've created this to-do list board for this 60 minutes podcast. And we need to schedule this session. We need to record it and publish. This application is connected to permit. And when I try to delete something, I'm getting an error. Why is that so? So in permit, you could see in the policy that I have a board and tasks. And I'm an admin, but an admin I set that can create, update list, or retrieve all the tasks, but he cannot delete. So let's try create. Let's create something. It's working, but deleting isn't working as we show. But we also have ABAC. ABAC gives us letting you set permissions by an attribute of each object. So for example, here I want to give the admin permission, delete only checked tasks. So checked tasks are tasks that have the attribute check as true. So let's see if I'm able to delete this task. Yes, this is working. But let's say that it's not makes sense that admin cannot delete tasks. So let's give him the permission to delete the tasks. So I will just click here and save the changes. Behind the scenes, what happens is that permit generate a new policy and stream it to the application. And now I can delete any task. As you can see, in real time, no refresh is needed. Everything is working very, very smoothly. And we also saw here a combination of ReBAC, role-based access control, with ABAC, attribute-based access control, that works seamlessly to the user. Just one last thing, I want to show you the audit log. We can see here that for example, deleted the task. As we can see the action, my user ID, and if I click on it, all the relevant details for the action that I've performed. So I think that this is it.
Yeah, it's a great walkthrough. You also mentioned about ReBAC, right? Where does that come in the interface? Would you
So
explain that through the walkthrough?
yes, so ReBAC is currently supported only with API.
Oh,
We have an API that let you set that this object is related to this object, and what is the relation between them? Is it a parent of it, or it's a child, or any other relation that you want? The UI of ReBAC is going to be shipped next month. So if you're interested in ReBAC and the UI interface, stay tuned.
Yeah, we should do another one on ReBAC after a couple of months.
Great.
So I saw one of the sections in the dashboard was FOAS. If you could explain what that is and why it's important, I'm curious to know about that.
Okay, so FOAS is indeed an interesting thing. Since I'm interested in security, and this is a long time, there is always a saying that says there can't be a policy in the front end. You cannot set policy in the front end. This is not secure. If you want to do anything with your security, do it only in the backend, because in the front end, there used to be developers that disable the button and says, okay, now it's secure, nobody can click it. But you can edit their HTML and click the button, or just send the request yourself. If you're not protecting it in the backend, you are not protected at all, right? So FOAS is a new thing in this area. And we at Permit says that from now on, you are able to do authorization in the front end. How can we do it? It's counterintuitive. So we use your token, your JOT token that is signed, to identify you to Permit. And in Permit, you can set a policy. For example, you want to use Slack API or Twilio API in a secure way. And you don't want to build a backend that sends your front-end clients to your backend, and then to move them into the Slack API with the secret. So you can tell Permit, this is my resource, the Slack API, here is a secret, save it in your vault. And when you send a request to FOAS and Permit, we identify your user by his JOT token. And this is secure and encrypted. And then we forward the request to each third-party solution that you want, such as Twilio or Slack. So all of your secrets are hidden from the front end, but each front-end developer is able to save it as secret, but to give his clients fine-grained permissions without building any backend for that.
All right. Wow, that's powerful. I also saw that one part of the dashboard is elements. If you could explain that a bit more, what are elements and what do they do?
Yes, so elements is embeddable components that you can embed in your own application. Probably when you used a lot of web application, there were parts that was repeating on itself each and every time. For example, user management. If your application has a user section about it, you will have a user management that you can create, invite, delete, change role for a user. Each and every time, a developer worked really hard to develop this front-end application and then the back-end of it. Same for audit logs. A lot of applications, especially security applications, have audit log section. And each and every time a developer developed this. We suggest and let all our customers, instead of building those elements and components themselves, they can just integrate permit element inside their own application, and they will have a user management fully functional and working, or audit log. And in the next months, we will also have invite and approval flows and much more elements that you can embed in your own application without the need to waste time on building them.
Wow, really cool. That's very convenient. But talking about convenience, another thing that I noticed is, the product permit is quite simple to navigate, quite simple to get things done. And, I saw those, the permissions, the check boxes that you could have to assign or disable any permissions. It was really intuitive, because everyone has seen those kind of permissions in other places. It's just that, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to cloud, a lot of that, it wasn't this easy. So, permit has really made it very simple. And, I like that no code is something that matters to permit. And, you want your solution to be a no code solution. And that quite interests me. And I'm fascinated with no code app building, and just operations in no code way is definitely something that interests me. And if you could talk a bit on, permit's approach to no code and some of the ways that no code simplifies authorization. That would be good to hear.
Right. So Permit indeed has a really unique approach to no code. We believe that permissions and authorization is an organization effort. So by using no code, we're enabling all the organization to get access to the policy and understand what is going on there. So the whole organization can be part of the permissions and the authorization. Of course, the developers, but also the security and the product people can look and understand the current status. We also believe that with no code, we should have a bit of low code, because the elements give you, with just a few lines of code that we will generate for you, the ability to get large things done in a very short time. But what I think that it's pretty unique to Permit is combining no code, low code with advanced code mode, because as we know, developers are wants to understand what they have beneath all the no code and low code. So we at Permit allows you to see the policy that we generate for you, and this way it is more easily to trust it, to understand it, and to debug it if you need. So I think that the approach of no code for everybody, low code for moving fast, and advanced code mode is the combination that let the good from all the worlds.
Wow, that's a really cool perspective. And I like that Permit is so flexible to enable all these three scenarios. And of course, there is a need for all three of them at different times. And so that's really cool that you built that into the product. Last couple of questions as we wind down our conversation today. I want to ask about what are some of the early feedback and results that your customers see once they start using Permit, and let's say the first few days or first few weeks. What are the first results?
So the first thing is the clear picture that you get. You open the dashboard, and in a glance, you understand exactly your policy status. Also, we talked about how easy it is to add new roles. It can take you less than a minute to add a new role to your application, which is just great. It can be, we have customers that with more than 30 roles, because it's so easy. They need something very unique for a person, they can do it. It's so easy and let your product be more flexible. All of your policy changes are now tracked, and you can roll back or understand exactly how you get the current status of your policy. Everything is tracked, your user actions and also the changes you did to the policy, audit logs and meta audit logs. And they can stop thinking about permissions all the time and focusing on their core product. Because let's admit that nobody wants to deal with permissions more than he has to. We all just do it because we have to. So without permit says you don't have to anymore. You can use permit or open source or anything and focus on your core product. There is enough challenges over there.
All right. Really great. So visibility and control are some of the key differences that your customers see upfront. Last question for you, Oded, as we close is, as you look ahead, what's in store for Permit? What are some exciting new features on your roadmap that you're most excited about? And just where do you see the space of authorization going as you look ahead? What are your thoughts on the future?
Okay, so I start with the future of Permit and then move to the future of the industry and the authorization space. I think I know that in Permit we are going to release very soon more elements like approval flows and invites that people asking us about it all the time. We just releasing ReBAC, and we are going to release the UI of ReBAC really soon. It's going to be very easy to use, very powerful. I encourage everyone who thinks about ReBAC checking this out. We're going to support more policy engines. We talked about OPA, but there are much more. There are CEDAR of Amazon that we are now supports in Permit. And there will be more that, and each has its own advantages, and you can switch between them with only a click. For example, you are using OPA, and now you think that Amazon secure permissions is better. You can change it, and hop, you're in the new one. And we will have more administration capabilities also be added to OPAL, our open source. So stay tuned about that as well. Regarding the industry, so we started about, I've talked about the policy engine. So I think that more and more enterprise companies will and cloud providers will enter into the authorization space and invest more. We can already saw the paper that Google released, and much more the Amazon verified permissions that just released lately. And I believe that we will see more of that in the near future. I will believe that we will see better integration between authentication and authorization. The authorization part is a bit new, but as it's grow, you will see better integrations with large players like Auth0 and super tokens and more. We will see, I hopefully think that we will see the FOS approach going to more and more products and letting the front-end developers the power to build full applications themselves, when also the permissions will be serverless. And last but not least, we are seeing a huge movement of AI and generative AI. I believe that this will affect authorization as well, as more and more companies will need to set quota of use because the AI models are really expensive and you want to monitor that as well and give permission to that. And also maybe authorization to type of queries that you will be able to perform. So I believe that this will change the authorization space as well.
Wow, some really interesting thoughts there on the future upcoming features for Permit and even the space and just kind of integration and the effect of AI and how authorization will be used to control even AI, manage AI, and that's really interesting. We should really wait and watch how this shapes up. But thank you so much for just sharing all that with us today, Oded. It was a great conversation with you, deep dive into authorization, and a very cool product that you guys have built with Permit. And I'm sure everyone listening and watching this is quite fascinated with the product. If you would like to know more, go to the website permit.io and check out the product in more detail. It definitely simplifies authorization. And if that's something on your mind, you definitely want to consider Permit for your organization. Oded, before you go, I have a couple of fun get-to-know-you questions. So yeah, let's see what you have to say for them. First question, what would you choose as an alternate career path if not for your job in tech?
Okay, so actually, computer is also my hobby, but
Okay.
apart from it, I also love woodworking. It started on COVID. I started building small things to my family, and it's really great. I also love playing on piano and guitar. And lately, I started to do some bit of gardening and working with plants. So maybe one of those, I don't know.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot of interest. You're actually the second person who's mentioning woodworking. Just last week, I did a podcast with someone else and they mentioned woodworking, and they as well started during the pandemic. Is there something that you made that you're proud of? Any piece of furniture?
Yes, so I built a swing to my daughters and
Wow.
also a bench, a small table. It's really fun. It's like building an application. You can do it really fast. You see what you build. Everybody is enjoy it. So I think that there is a similarity between developing a product and building something with wood. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I've been into that as well during the pandemic, so I can totally relate. Okay, so yeah, so you're first developer at Permit. I want to ask where did it all start? When did you first decide I'm going to be a programmer, and what was that moment or the phase that it happened?
So I think that it was around the age of 18 that I understand that it can be more than a hobby. And it could be actual work, because before that I thought, yeah, I don't know, it's really nice, but all my friends are playing with a computer and so am I. It's not a real job. And only when I was about 18, I thought, okay, it's getting serious, I think.
All right, all right. Yeah, gaming can be serious. Um, what's one software tool or product that you really love using and you think is built really well?
So one tool that I love, am I allowed to pick three?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so Linear is a really great task management tool, much better than Jira, especially for developers. I do love the way that Copilot is integrated with your code. So this is another product that I advise. I'm doing things at home, side projects, and the Copilot helped me to reduce the development time. So I highly recommend on that. And the last thing is Google Colab, which is a great tool that helped me venture into machine learning in my free time. So those three tools are just the best.
Yeah. We hear linear quite often as well on the show. A lot of people are a fan. And I didn't know about Google Colab. I want to check it out. Complete the sentence for us. I can spend hours doing.
Digging on new technologies, especially the generative AI and the image generations. When it came out, all my free time went to trying
Creating
to
images.
create version of myself as Superman, and it's just so cool.
Do you have a favorite tool?
I love the Stable Diffusion because it's an open source and it's so great. And the images that came out from Midjourney is also really, really good. And the Discord platform is great. DALL-E is the first one, is my least favorite. So I don't know about that.
All right. Yeah, I'm yet to check those out, but I've been hearing more and more about each of them. So yeah, I should dive in sometime. The last question for you is, which open source project have you spent the most time with, of course, apart from OPAL itself?
So one open source tool that I really love is OpenAPI, which lets you work with different languages on an API and have something in common. We use it for our SDKs, and I think it's pretty good. It can be a bit better, but for now, it's the best that I know, and I like it a lot.
All right. Neat. So with that, we come to the end of our conversation, Oded, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing all about authorization. And it was wonderful seeing the product that you built from it. Looks really promising and is quite powerful. And it was fun to even get to know you as well. I wouldn't have told that you're into woodworking, and so it was a fun chat. Thanks so much for joining. Maybe you can come back again after a few months to talk about how ReBAC is progressing. We'd love to have you back.
Gladly, thank you. I just want to add that you can check out the product. We have a very generous free tier with unlimited time. So you can just check it out, see if it works for you, see if you get any value, and give us the feedback. We really love to get feedback from fellow developers. So try it out and let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, viewers, thank you again for joining us for this episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If this kind of podcast interests you, then you want to tune in again. We do this every week. We're talking to a lot of startups, a lot of enterprises about different topics within cloud native and Kubernetes. So do join us again next week. Until then, take care.